Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the 7th virtual Palm Beach International Equestrian Center educational series presented by Equestrian here at the Winter Equestrian Festival for WEF Week 7. Can't believe it already. My name is Miranda Tiona, and I am your returning host and educational series coordinator for the 2021 season here at the Winter Equestrian Festival. Now, with all that said, let's begin. Today's educational series session is sponsored by Athletes Risk Management and Ride EquiSafe. And the topic is making smart choices is crucial in this sport. Olympian Kevin Babington, Athletes Risk Management President Jeffrey Wight, and Ride EquiSafe founder Catherine Winter join in a conversation about smart tools to manage the financial and physical risks of getting into the saddle, from insurance to air vests and more. I will begin with a testimonial from Kevin Babington himself, and then I will introduce the other two speakers as well. So first and foremost, Kevin Babington is, as you all know, an Olympian and Athletes Risk Management Ambassador. These are his words, I quote, "On August 30th, 2019, I suffered an uncommon and unforeseeable hyperextension of my cervical spine during a Grand Prix competition. A fall from a horse that I had ridden for years in high-level competitions, changed my life in an instant. I am paralyzed from the shoulders down, and I have been fighting daily to regain feeling and mobility in my body. There are no guarantees. Physical therapy, which is important to facilitate any recovery, is expensive and generally not covered by health insurance, with the exception of a few visits. Years ago, after I had children, I had asked my financial planner about disability insurance, and I was told that I was uninsurable in my profession, with the exception of a policy through Lloyd's of London. The premiums were so expensive, it was ridiculously unaffordable. I never looked again. I regret not looking for any other options. As a professional athlete, I never had time to sit down and look for something. There was always something more pressing than looking at insurance. I should have made the time. I cannot change the past or what has happened, but I can tell you that I wish I had known about the affordable living benefits that Athletes Risk Management represents inside of live insurance for equestrians that can write you a check when you really need it. Suffering the physical and mental consequences of an accident, injury, or disease is hard enough. The financial burden on top of that is worse for both you and your family. I hope to spare others the financial worry that I have experienced since I have been unable to ride." And again, that was a direct quote from Kevin Babington himself. I will now introduce our two speakers, one from Athletes Risk Management and one from Ride EquiSafe, our two sponsors for this session. So, Athletes Risk Management's founder and a lifelong equestrian, Geoff Wight's life path has blended world-class entertainment and sports with business and personal finance. Geoff is passionate about horses and protecting riders. A serious jumping accident in 1985 brought him perilously close to personal tragedy. His wife, Licia, had a horse roll on her that ended her career as a top trainer, preparing Grand Prix jumping horses for WEF. To Geoff, protecting riders against critical injury, financial risk is personal. His sports career is a Jerry Maguire story, beginning at IMG, the sports management juggernaut. There, he ran the special projects division out of New York, generating new and original television properties and events such as the Jackson Family Honors, the reunion of Michael Jackson and his family on NBC, the Royal India-USA Polo Exchange with the Maharaja of Jaipur that included events with Prince Charles, the Sultan of Brunei with polo's greatest players, representation of the American Grand Prix Association, consulting with the USET to create the Festival of Champions for their Gladstone, New Jersey home, coordinating U.S. eventing activities for Chef Equipe, Captain Mark Phillips, and more. Protecting riders from the financial risk of a critical injury or illness is Geoff's mission. Next, Catherine Winter, the founder of Ride EquiSafe, has been riding since the age of 7. The years are too many to count. She has primarily ridden hunters and jumpers, but has also dabbled in eventing and is currently a partner in Doug Payne's 2019 Pan American Games, eventing team gold medal mount Star Witness. Professionally, Catherine has worked for large multinationals, including Intel and IBM, but started Ride EquiSafe after her own experience and frustrations trying to find protective equipment for herself. She set about creating a destination for equestrians to research safety products and shop from the largest selection available in North America. First and foremost, she is passionate about educating people about their options and what different products can and cannot do so that people can make an informed decision and be their best selves in the saddle. Catherine lives in Raleigh, North Carolina with her husband and 3 dogs, including Ride EquiSafe brand ambassador Bernie, who can be seen at shows sporting his own body protector to raise awareness. Now, with all of that said, I am going to actually launch an interactive poll to kind of help us get started, kind of feel the audience, gauge the audience a bit, to kind of see where you're all at with some of these different topics that are going to be addressed today. So I'm going to take about a minute, so definitely encourage you to participate. So I will go ahead and launch that right now. Okay, so I have launched the poll. Please take some time to answer the 4 questions. It's really helpful to gauge the audience. And I will now pan over to Kevin Babington's living room where our speakers are all together and are going to have a very warm conversation all together on these topics, and very much encourage you to ask as many questions as you like. Don't forget the Q&A message center at the bottom. Please answer the poll, give it a little bit more time, and I will let our speakers take it away very shortly.
Hello and good evening. Great to be with you. And thank you, Miranda. It's a pleasure. Again, we are in Kevin Babington's living room. It's very comfortable, along with his wife, Diana, and his aide as well. And, you know, I'm looking out through the window and I see the outdoor ring. It's set up with jumps. Just to tell you, my daughter took a lesson with their daughter, Gwyneth, today. She really enjoyed it. And Kevin has really worked hard all day. He gives lessons from the porch. He uses a microphone. So, and by the way, there could be some dogs barking because we are in Kevin and Diana's home. But thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, Kevin.
You're very welcome, and I'd like to welcome everybody to my home. Thank
you. And Catherine, it's great that we are together on this important subject.
Yes.
And you know, of course, we have our own experiences, and we've had the ups and downs, and that's why one of the questions was about, you know, offense and defense. Okay, so what we're really here is it's all about rider safety and protection. And so our thought is that, you know, Kevin is certainly an expert in a sense in the offense of really developing skill, proficiency, and the ability to ride, and certainly at a very high level. And that's what he does with his students and his clients, is he takes them to that level. And so that's offense. And so defense is also, you know, we put on our helmets, we ride with our heels down, and we use safety equipment. And now with the inflatable vests and the protective jackets, that sort of thing. And we're also looking at what Kevin mentioned is the ability to provide financial protection. So that's defense. So the idea here with that is to give us all peace of mind. So both financially and physically in what we do. So the idea of insurance is I'm sure everybody has car insurance and homeowners insurance and liability insurance, and maybe you insure your horses, you have health insurance. and life insurance. And the reason that we have these things is that we insure that which we could not afford to lose. In other words, we could not replace it. Or even if we could afford to replace it, we don't want to use our hard-earned money for that. So the idea of our insurance in protecting riders with a life insurance has what we call living benefits. And in the living benefits, what they do is they provide protection in the case of certain events. So that insurance has critical injury protection. There are certain triggers, which we're going to a little bit later on, after Catherine's had an opportunity to talk about her wonderful products. We'll put up on the screen what they look like. So there's critical injury, critical illness, chronic illness. And so it has a number of ways in which you have a life insurance, but well, I know I get a little uncomfortable about saying this, but I need to. You don't have to die to use the money, to access the money. So because a lot of times, what we need, just like in with the equipment, is we need an ability to recover. So time is very important. And so we might not be able to earn a living. As Kevin, you experienced, so you had an incredible dip in your income immediately from your accident.
Absolutely. I was sort of the breadwinner, or the main breadwinner. Most of my income came from competing, prize money. I did a lot of coaching. My wife also is a coach, and but I made a lot of money on the road, and overnight everything was gone. My main source of income. And like I said in my testimonial, it's not that I didn't think about it, and it's not that. It's one of the first things my wife and I wanted to get was disability insurance, but I just couldn't afford it. I was getting quotes of like $40,000 because they were considering me as a jockey instead of a show jumping rider.
Right.
Yeah. So I wish I knew this was available, but you get busy, and so I would like everybody out there to be aware that it is available and it's very affordable.
Right. The affordability is important. And so what we want to do, we'll use a term policy. That means it's for a period of time and it's the least expensive. But in particular, we have found an insurance carrier, an insurance company that does not discriminate with equestrians. In other words, they don't, and I've encountered this, there are insurance companies that as soon as you say you're an equestrian, they either won't insure you or they put you into a very expensive, high risk rating. So this particular carrier that we use, and you'll be able to ask me directly what that is if we speak, but this carrier also writes insurance for the NFL, the NHL, and big sports and that sort of thing. So it's a very sports-oriented insurance company that's been around for 170 years. And these living benefits are just incredible. The critical injury, critical illness, and chronic illness. So there's a part of it that will pay you a lump sum, and that lump sum is there. Hope you heard the dog bark. That lump sum is there to give you a big check, if one of these things happen. So that is to give you a lot of help. And it's money that you can spend on anything. It's not like a health insurance where it's either they pay directly to a health provider or they reimburse you for your expenses. So this is an idea to give you money for living. You can use it for anything. You can use it for a trip. You can use it for care. In fact, what Kevin mentioned is that physical therapy, which is very expensive, they usually only give you a few sessions in your health insurance. So being able to have access to that money is a critical part that you can use to recover. So with that, I'd like to invite Catherine Winter, who's the founder of EquiSafe, to talk about these incredibly important physical products that we use, okay?
Yeah, so I think, we've had multiple conversations now about, we look at this kind of as a three-legged stool, right? You have financial preparation, you have mental preparation, and you have physical preparation. And we really do want you to be your best selves in the saddle. And you need to think about all three of those in order to accomplish that. So obviously, Geoff, what you're offering is the financial piece of it. And there's a mental component that goes along with that. And with what I'm offering with Ride EquiSafe, being that we specialize in safety equipment, we're looking at how do we protect the physical. And I think by covering the financial and the physical, it allows you to, from a mental perspective, be more confident in the saddle, because you're not worried as much as, about, okay, if I get hurt, how am I going to recover? How am I going to pay my bills? And I know, Kevin, that was one of the things that you had mentioned, that the income with your accident just stopped. So, with the protective equipment, whether that's a body protector or an air vest or a safety stirrup, these are all things that you're using proactively to try to prevent or minimize injury to the greatest extent possible. I know people weren't really wearing them in the hunter jumper market before your accident, but I think with your accident, that's really been a catalyst for awareness in the hunter jumper discipline. What are your thoughts on that type of equipment?
Well, I mean, like, I had a serious accident that paralyzed me, but even just wearing a vest or a body protector to prevent your dislocating your shoulder or breaking a bone, it can put you out of work for months. And every year in Florida, somebody has a fall right in the middle of season. And there's your main income is during season. So I have to say, I have to put a word out for my wife. When after the accident, she got online on Facebook and really promoted the vests, and a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon. And I'm so proud to see so many of my peers out there wearing the vest. Like, I was watching at Michigan, and I was blown away by how many riders came in the ring, best riders in the country. And every other rider had a vest on. I'm like, this is fantastic. So they're sending a message out to the juniors and the amateurs, and now you see people in the hunter ring and the equitation ring. And so don't be too proud. Don't feel like you're better than somebody by not wearing one. It doesn't have to be an accident as bad as mine, but think about your livelihood. Think about, I've had dislocations, and I broke my shoulder one time I dislocated my shoulder right before the World Championships. I almost lost my position on the team, but a protective vest would have made all the difference.
Yeah. And I also think, sometimes we think, okay, professionals are the ones that are really needing the protection because this is their livelihood, but I'm an amateur rider. And so for me, it's just as important to wear protective equipment, because if I get injured, it affects my ability to do, my regular job, which is not riding. So, I'm also really happy to see amateurs that are exploring their safety options. We're seeing a lot of juniors being proactive and being role models. So I think that that's been really exciting. Your daughters are wearing the vests. Your wife is wearing the vest. So
most of my students are wearing the vest. And, when I'm looking at a horse, I have an expression. I know a lot of professionals, they have to tick a lot of boxes, right? You have to have rideability, good front end, good head. But it's the same as a professional or an amateur. It doesn't make a difference. You have to tick a lot of boxes. If you have a good helmet, a good protective vest, safety stirrups, whatever, and good insurance, like whether it be disability insurance, you have to tick all those boxes, so you don't have to think about it when you're in the ring.
Right.
There's just less likelihood of something happening, and I think that's really important.
Peace of mind.
Exactly.
Yeah. Marina, if you want to pop up, actually, because I had a couple of examples of what some of these products look like. And I know that a lot of people that come and talk to me, as you mentioned in your intro, one of the things that Ride EquiSafe really tries to do is to educate and inform. And we carry virtually every different type of protective equipment. And we want people to understand what each is capable of, what the limitations are for each of them as well, so that they can make that informed decision. And certainly, some of the questions I get are, what are they gonna, what does it look like? Are people gonna be able to tell that I'm wearing this equipment? Are the judges gonna count off? And I was actually fortunate enough to be part of an article that was published last week where a number of judges were asked, what their perspective was. And one, very prolific judge that is highly respected, specifically said that if a judge were to count off, they should have their judge's card revoked, which I think that's a really good, strong endorsement. But even from the aesthetic piece, because we know that there's an aesthetic component to our sport, you can see here, these are some examples of air vests. So they're very low profile. On the right, you can see a picture of somebody that was in the Hunter Spectacular last week. You'd really have to look close to notice that that person is wearing a vest. So they make them where you can wear them on top of riding clothes. There are certain models that you can wear under air vest compatible clothing. But I'm actually impressed that I'm seeing so many people wearing them on top, because they know that the look doesn't matter. It's about safety. If you go to the next slide, you can see some examples of body protectors. And body protectors do some different things. They're great for pinpoint impact. And again, a whole bunch of different looks that you can get, but you can certainly get ones that are very low profile, that don't make it terribly obvious that you're wearing a body protector, but these are great if you're in a situation where you're landing on a jump cup or getting stepped on or getting kicked. And then the last slide shows our safety stirrup options. Now I'm showing my age here, but when I was a little kid, I used little peacock stirrups with the rubber bands. And we now have a whole bunch of different options for safety stirrups, going from the traditional all the way to the very modern and contemporary. And you can really, change colors and show your different personal colors. But all of these different options have safety mechanisms to make sure that you're able to get out of your stirrup if for some reason you were to fall. So there really is something out there for everyone from the physical protection perspective. So we really want people to get informed and take advantage of it. And I think, Geoff, with what you're doing, having the financial peace of mind, and even knowing for me that as an amateur, I can take advantage of what you are able to offer as well. And that would be hugely advantageous as a rider myself.
Right. And Catherine, I was at your booth, which is right now at WEF on the showgrounds there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been pretty interesting to watch you fit the vests for your clients. And in particular was the gentleman from California.
Mm-hmm.
And, he fitted the vest.
Yep.
And then you showed him the jacket.
Yep.
And you fit that right over it. And they were made for each other. And the look was just perfect.
You
and
couldn't tell that he had an air vest on.
could not tell.
Yeah.
And it was vented because,
Yep.
one of our concerns is, well, these things get kind of hot, now that it's getting warmer down here in Florida as we go into the season. So that's an issue too. So
Yep.
great.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and my kids wear them every day, and they're riding 5-6 horses a day in 85-degree weather. And the first thing I ask them is it hot? And no, they feel very comfortable in them.
Yeah. I mean, if we could go back in time, and I know we always say that hindsight is 20/20. Like if you knew now what you could have known then, what would you have used in your mind in terms of safety equipment?
I mean, I for sure I would consider either a body protector or the inflatable jacket. I had already gone to a safety stirrup because I used to have this terrible fear of being dragged. I had been dragged once or twice a little bit and was able to get my foot out before it became very serious. But I've witnessed people almost being dragged to their death, and it's a very scary thing. So I remember when the modern helmets first came out, the first EPA, I said, I'm never wearing one of those. And 2 months later, I was wearing one, because when you realize, when they explain to you how useless the old helmets were,
right?
And then, once you have kids and all of a sudden you realize, I want to be there for my kids, something simple as falling and landing on your head, and as a young Irish kid, I was macho and thinking, oh, I'm invincible. Nobody's invincible. And it's a dangerous sport. And I think you have to not only protect yourself, but protect your family and your students and the people that love you, And So I would definitely wear a vest or a body protector. I think both of them give you good protection. I think top of the line safety helmet. I think you can, it's not a place to cut corners, and anything out there that can help you just avoid a simple mistake. I was one of those people like, oh, I need a helmet for jumping, but I don't need it for flat work. I had a fall on a horse one day, putting her back in work. She tripped. I tried to protect her and pull her between that. We had these posts, and I hit my head smack on the post. And lucky I didn't, have brain damage for it. But look at all the dressage riders now. They're all wearing helmets. And I think we have to wake up and be smart about it.
Yeah, and I think with the helmets, we don't particularly deal with helmets, but at the same time, there's this fantastic new technology, MIPS, that has come out, and there are multiple helmet brands that have MIPS technology in them. And so really strongly encourage everyone, you're supposed to replace your helmet every few years, but make sure that your helmet has MIPS technology in it. I think that's really important. So,
Right.
So Geoff, with what you're doing, I think what we've really enjoyed, we've had the opportunity to be in the booth at the same time with clients coming in. And so I've been able to talk to them about equipment, and you've been able to talk to them about the insurance coverage. And I think they've been really impressed with what you can offer. So can you share a little bit more detail?
Absolutely. And it was really interesting. The same California client of yours, as soon as he found out about the insurance, and then, with today's technology, you take your iPad and you can whip up what's called an illustration and show how affordable it was. You said, email that to me. And so we'll be talking, and it just works like that. Yesterday, I sat down for lunch with one of the top riders been on the team. And I think she was pretty blown away about the coverage she can get and the inexpensiveness of it. We have a good collection of Olympians and great riders, amateur riders. We have dressage riders insured. We have hunter riders insured, jumpers, and eventers. Okay, we have an Australian eventer who's an Olympian. He's a great gentleman, and so it's really a pleasure to serve. And I kind of made a joke with actually another Olympian from South America. And I said, the reason I really do this business is just so an excuse to hang around such great people. So that's definitely part of it. But Miranda, if you could please pull up a few slides that we have on the insurance, that'd be great. And while she's doing that, again, want to kind of talk about the idea of offense and defense. And you see, we're kind of bouncing back and forth here, but we're talking a lot about the defense. So we have the financial house. So we all live in a real house or an apartment, but we have where we live. It's our house, it's our home. But we also live in a financial house. And so protecting our financial house is really just as important, and I could suggest maybe even more important than our physical house, okay? Because if our financial house is protected, then everything else in our life is going to continue to be protected. So if we could have the next slide, please, Miranda.
Miranda's turning into our Vanna White.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Well, here we go here. Now, these few slides could make me guilty of the too much information. So we'll try our best here. But here's the idea here in these, in what we have, when we say we transfer rider's risk, that means that we're paying a premium and you're transferring the risk to an insurance company. So in this case, what we are showing examples of these living benefits: the critical injury that I mentioned earlier, the critical illness, and there's 13 triggers for that. Going back to the critical injury, there's 4 triggers for that. And those two we'll see, and we'll show you a slide on that, that they pay a lump sum. And then the chronic illness, now Kevin was talking about disability. And while this is technically not a disability policy, it sort of works like a disability in the same way. So we have what are called the activities of daily living, of which there are 6. Could be like eating, moving from one place to another, called transferring or bathing, things like that. And if a person needed help or standby assistance with 2 out of those 6, then you could turn on a monthly check, and it can be rather sizable. And so that goes on, can go on for up to 4 years. So that is, again, the lump sum, and certain triggers happening, a monthly check, certain triggers happening, and a person could choose how to use these living benefits and what's best for them. So, but it is again to give you time to recover, to get back with your life, to get back with your riding, with your profession. We have a dog coming in here, so I mean, no worries. So next slide, please, Miranda. Okay. Next slide, please. So, right, now I don't know how well you can see this. Some of you might be on a smartphone or something like that. So what we're looking to do here is to show you, you have the chronic illness and the critical illness, and the chronic illness is the idea that it pays out these on those activities of daily living. And then the critical illness is the events that would be like ALS or cancer, heart attack, that sort of thing. And one thing that we didn't get up here, it was on there, but somehow in editing I do see it's missed, was the triggers on the critical injury, which I think for us equestrians is particularly important because it does mention a traumatic brain injury. As Kevin mentioned, he was had to hit a pole. I know that I had one heck of a traumatic brain injury with my little episode in 1985. And I think the statistics are something like over 50% of riders at WEF have had concussions and multiple concussions. So the way that this would work and would be that you get a lump sum check, but it could be paralysis in Kevin's case. That's where he says if we had him properly insured, would have written him a check for $1 million. That would have made a difference. Would have taken a lot of that financial pressure off. And there can be several other triggers as well. So if you could show us the next slide, please, Miranda. So the next slide that you're going to see is actually going to give some information on how the actual payouts might look. And again, I hope you can see this, but what you'll see here is on the bottom, where you see all those figures across there, those are the lump sums. And that's again for the critical injury and the critical illness. And you might see that it says mild, moderate, severe, and life-threatening. So as this is life insurance, so the more it gets close to mortality, then the higher it's going to pay. And above that, you'll see where it says, in this case, this is, by the way, just as an example, it's a 40-year-old woman, preferred non-tobacco, and it's $1.5 million worth of coverage. So you'll see that it says at age 42, and it's probably maybe about $200 less, or maybe about $700 less, excuse me. So maybe about $9,000 right at 40 when she might be insured, okay, on the monthly. So as you can see, it goes up as you get older. So in a sense, the more you've sort of paid into the policy, the more that they're going to provide that monthly sum for you. So that's the idea of the chronic illness. If you needed help with 2 out of the 6, there was a 90-day waiting period, which is typical of most disabilities. And so after 90 days, you would receive this money, and it can be applied for every year. So it could be renewed and going on for as much as 4 years. So $9,000 a month. And if you look up in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that this is $1.5 million. It's called the face value. And the initial premium, which is $100.32. So that's the affordability part that we're talking about. And so it says initial premium, but that's locked in this case, for 20 years. So this would take this policy holder up to age 60. Now we could go 30 years. It's going to be some more money, an extra 10 years, which adds more risk to the insurance company. So, but the 20 year policy is often what we'll do for many people, because we want to then also kind of work with them on their finances and maybe put them in a position to become self-insured or have retirement money, that sort of thing. And this could be the bulk of their most risky time that they're riding as well. So that is the an idea of the coverage there. It does mention terminal illness, and you see that's about maybe 85, can be as much as 90% of the face value here. So if a person experiences a terminal illness, diagnoses that the doctor says that they would pass within 24 months, then a lump sum check is written like that. Now, let's say a person has something that there's no treatment for here in the United States, but there's something in France, but it's not covered by your insurance. And so you take $200,000-300,000 out of that, you go, you get this treatment, and you've taken this money, and guess what you get to do with the rest of it? You get to keep it. So it doesn't go back, even if you are cured. So the idea here is to provide cash, to provide the ability to write a check. And this is not like sort of stub your toes. So this is serious money for not very much money to get, no, this is not too much money to get a lot of money, but there are specific things that it does cover. So if you go to the last slide, Miranda, that would be great.
And while Miranda's going there, I'll just mention that when I saw this and saw the premium, my trainer is a young guy with a young family, 2 young kids, and in addition to riding, he's a private pilot.
Right.
So immediately I was like, Geoff, you need to do a quote. And I was just amazed at the price of the quote against the coverage that he was going to get, and immediately really pushed him to contact you, just because he's in a position with 2 young children, and being the primary breadwinner, he can't afford to be out. But because he's also performing at a really high level, he needs the time, if he were to get hurt, to be able to heal before jumping back in the saddle. So immediately I was like, you have to call.
Correct. Yes, it's great. And yes, he is a private pilot too. And he sent me a message. He said that his he does have some life insurance. He needs more, and that his agent that gave him that coverage said, because he became a pilot after that, he said if he'd been a pilot before, they would know to cover him. Well, I contacted underwriting, and they said that they will cover him. Now I have to. They gave me how many hours he flies and what it is. But then we went through it, and we will actually be able to cover him with these living benefits. So I'm really excited about that. Okay, so it provides him with that peace of mind, the protection for his family. Well, this last slide, this is kind of a little bit fun. I don't know if you all know Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Well, this was a book written about 2,500 years ago by a Chinese general, and it's all about strategy. But I just found this quote just the other day, and I thought it was kind of like along the lines that we were talking about with our defense and in sports. So it says here, invincibility lies in the defense. So invincibility, okay? So we all want to succeed. We all want to be at a high level. And so that is what we're really excited about, is providing a defense. So we're good with the slideshow now, Miranda. So thank you very much. And so Kevin, how do you see all this sort of being integrated?
Well, like I said before, I mean, you have to tick all your boxes,
Right.
Yeah. For me, I was a writer and a writing instructor, and I need to, I think for any young professional or anybody in the business, get your insurance. Be smart about wearing your safety equipment.
Right.
So you have just less things to worry about,
Right.
And it takes 2 seconds to put on a vest. It takes probably a 20-minute meeting with you to get covered.
Correct.
For not a lot of expense. I mean, we go out and we spend a couple of $100 on a meal,
Right.
3 or 4 days a week, and then we get cheap about protecting ourselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's also many other products that you can talk to them about also that will put people in a more comfortable, less stressful position.
That's right.
And I think that's very important. We get so busy as horsemen and professionals that sometimes we overlook the very important things. And, I'd say safety is really, really important. And, whether you have kids or not, it doesn't matter. You just, people I think are in the industry now, we're becoming more professional. I think we're watching our diet, watching our, our turnout and stuff like that. Nobody's going to look down on you if you're wearing safety equipment, and nobody's going to think you're silly if you're well covered. I mean, that's part of the business.
Right.
So it's you have to get the coverage, and for the little bit of cost that you can you can make it up doing a few lessons, extra lessons every month.
Right, exactly. Well, the purpose of money dictates what you do with it, where you put it. So the purpose of money, if we can use it on defense to protect ourselves through the equipment, if we can protect ourselves financially, that's its purpose. Now we have other money. It's kind of like you want to put names on your dollars, so to speak, okay? I don't know if any of you know Dave Ramsey, but he talks about that. He says you want to name your dollars because if you don't, they become homeless. And so
That's a good way to put it.
so you want to keep your dollars at home and working for you. So if you name your dollars, this is going to be for my protection. Certainly, we like the best saddles, we like the best equipment, we want to, have the proper clothes that we wear for our riding. We want to give our horses the nutrition, and we have vet bills, we have farrier expenses to keep them, correct in their podiatry. And so, yes, that's the idea. The insurance is there to protect you too.
I think the overall idea is we're trying to plan for resiliency, right? We know that we're doing something risky. We're taking hopefully calculated risks in the process. But as part of that, we're also trying to make sure that we're being proactive in our decision making to, again, be able to bounce back as quickly as possible, whether that's financially, whether that's physically, whether that's getting your head back in the game. I think it's a combination of all of those things. And it's just getting us to the most resilient place we can possibly be.
Right. When you talk about risk, life is risk. There's just, even without the horses, it's just the nature of life. So there's risk, there's calculated risk, there's intelligent risk, there's managed risk, there's risk management, and then there's reckless. Okay. Now, if I get in my car and I don't put the seatbelt on, that's really reckless because there's no reason why not to wear a seatbelt. So it'd be reckless in a sense, really, not to wear protective equipment.
We would never go without helmets these days. We talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Like if we see somebody without a helmet now, we're like, okay, that person's crazy.
Right. I have to admit, when I was younger, I used to ride with a baseball
hat.
Right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I think with that, we're nearly at time, and I'm really curious to see what questions the audience might have that we might be able to answer. So Miranda, are there any questions in the queue?
There are indeed. Yes, so I will get up the questions. And I will say it was very nice being your virtual Vanna White.
Fantastic job.
Thank you. And now I will be your virtual paparazzi media, if you will, asking you questions from the audience. So let me get some questions up here. All right, so our first question comes from Tanya. Thank you, Tanya. She says, a lot of this conversation is geared to hunter, jumper, and eventers, i.e. speaking to judges. Has this also been done for the dressage world? Dressage is notoriously difficult due to being stuck in the old days and the traditional look. Have you had any feedback from the dressage world?
So it's interesting because I definitely do have dressage clients, and they echo exactly what Tanya has said. They can tend to be a little bit slow to adopt, especially when it comes to an aesthetic perspective. And I think what I'm seeing more on the dressage side is the adoption of the safety stirrups, because you can get stirrups that look like regular stirrups. And so we're starting to see dressage riders get into that. But I'm definitely seeing dressage riders getting into protective gear for their upper body as well. So we certainly have examples of people wearing air vests, especially some of the newer ones that are low profile. And so I think we still have room to go on the dressage side, but we definitely have some people that are pioneering and leading the way and being the role models. And same thing, we have, judges that are being supportive. Frankly, I think it's a liability for anybody that's a professional, whether it's a trainer or a judge, to discourage somebody from choosing protective equipment. Especially if it's purely for aesthetics, I think that that's a risk on a trainer or a judge. And it's definitely becoming more accepted in all disciplines. And we just need to see more people walking the talk, and it will become more and more accepted.
Great. Thanks for that. I will go to the next question. Susan says, what about fox hunters?
So I actually do outfit a lot of fox hunters. We are seeing them in all of the different types of equipment. It really depends on, what level their riding is, if they're wearing the thick hunt coats as well, potential previous injuries that they've had that we need to be aware of. But we actually see quite good adoption of the fox hunters. And interestingly, especially on the AirVest side, we are able to do custom colors that go with their hunt coats. So that tends to be really appealing as well. We can also, going back to the aesthetics, we can make it attractive regardless of your purpose or your discipline of riding.
But I even know hunting in Ireland, you see a lot of people wearing body protectors.
Mhm.
And, to ride at a local riding school in Ireland, it's a requirement to
Yep.
wear a body protector.
Yep.
You can't run a riding school without body protectors for kids. So I think there's a carryover into the hunt field and all the other disciplines over there.
Well, and I've seen the jumps that the fox hunters jump in Ireland.
It should be a
And
requirement.
yes, it should be a requirement.
Mandatory.
Excellent. So we have Hillary asked, does Geoff's company protect polo players as well?
Well, yes, we do. They are equestrians and they are not penalized. So by being an equestrian, so we definitely can protect polo players. As a matter of fact, I'm working on what we call a case right now with 2 polo players. And they are from Argentina, where else, of course. But they have visas. Okay, so they're allowed, they have working visas here. So we're able to do that for them, for foreign nationals. And by the way, I have quite a few foreign nationals who are insured, okay, who are here with a visa, but not necessarily with a green card, that sort of thing.
What about other disciplines? I'm curious, like, jockeys that are racing, endurance riders. Is there any limitation on the discipline for insurance?
Absolutely not. And that's amazing. I mean, even jockeys, that's one of the things that, certainly early on when I was asking the questions, is this okay? It's kind of like the turtle sticking his head out, is this going to be okay? We really can do this? And they went all the way back to what they call the reinsurers to make sure that we were properly representing what we can really offer in the equestrian world. So in amazing enough, they even said, yes, jockeys. So yes, we can insure jockeys. And we have been kind of going back and forth with the Jockeys Guild, with a person to set up a meeting. We had it canceled because of the COVID that would happen last year. We're kind of really trying to pick that back up again, but we would like very much to be able to offer this to jockeys. Yes.
I think that was actually a perfect transition. There was also a follow-up question from Hillary. She asked about what about race jockeys, but then she also asked, what about steeplechase riders? If you want to touch on that quickly too.
Well, steeplechase, I mean, when I think about steeplechase, it's probably like your Irish hunters, right? How many falls have we seen with that? I mean, I'm from New Jersey, not too far from the team headquarters, and there was I think it was in, I'm just trying to remember the name of it, but I used to go every year to a big hunt meet, but yep, there's those spills and chills. Far Hills, that's right, Far Hills, yeah. So yes, even steeplechase jockeys are.
Excellent, great. So so our next question is from Margot. She said, replacing my GPA helmet every 2 years is over $600. Can we stretch it longer?
So I would say that you definitely want to go with the manufacturer's recommendations. What I will say is that, again, the MIPS technology in the helmets is critical. I would definitely encourage you to follow the manufacturer's recommendations, whether it's the replacement time or if you've fallen and you've hit your head, they recommend replacement. A lot of these manufacturers have programs actually where if you have fallen and you know you've hit your head, that they will do a replacement for you. It's kind of the same thing with air vests. The air vests have different recommendations in terms of how often you should have them serviced or inspected. The last thing that you want is to be wearing your protective equipment and expecting that it's going to protect you. And then because you didn't follow the guidelines when you really need it, it doesn't work the way that it needs to because you haven't done the service or whatever the case may be. So it's one of the challenges and it's one of the barriers of our sport is that a lot of our equipment is just really expensive. And my hope, frankly, is that as we see the equipment used more, and we see better adoption, that might drive the prices down a little bit, would be my hope. But that would not be something that I would recommend trying to stretch out. The nice thing is, especially with the new MIPS helmets, there are a large number of manufacturers that are offering those helmets in a wide variety of price ranges, and they're all very attractive. So you can balance all of those different things without trading off your safety.
Yes, so now we have Susan. She's two things actually. She said, we are not pros, but we are out there taking chances. Indeed. And then she also wrote, I have seen riders in the field with protective vests, etc., going against the traditional turnout. But is there insurance geared towards our discipline?
Well, here's the nice thing about it is that it doesn't matter where the event might happen, whether the sort of like the injury, it could be on the horse or off the horse, but certainly on the horse, but it could be in any other type of event that would trigger these. So it's not limited to the horse or the horse show ground. And you know, by the way, I know like our association, sometimes they'll offer some insurances, and I've seen, you know, very low amounts that they really will pay out that really wouldn't cover hardly anything. So the idea here is you want to get a policy that's going to have a really good potential payout there, because you know you want to have a good amount of money to be able to. It's going to buy you time and perhaps the services that's going to best help you recover. And that sort of thing on the living benefits. And again, it is a life insurance. And well, you know, again, we might want to look after the people that we care about the most, and that's just part of life. So it does have that too. So I kind of like to think of it as like, if you were in San Francisco and you're going up one of those office buildings in an elevator, and there's two side by side, and they're called cars, elevator cars, and one has one cable and one has 5. You're going to go up. What you don't know is while you're in that car, there's going to be an earthquake. So which car would you rather be in? The one with 1 or 5? Well, it's a dumb question. You want 5. You want a lot of cables. That's going to make sure that you're going to be safe. So that's what we do. We provide a lot of cables inside of this insurance. So it covers our disciplines and covers our non-disciplines. It's a life happens idea.
So just a question on that. So if we have this insurance that's protecting equestrians, but then we get in a car accident, does it work the exact same?
Same.
Okay.
Same way, right? So you don't need a separate insurance for your equestrian activities.
Gotcha.
Amateur, professional, doesn't matter. Yes, it's going to cover you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Excellent. I think our next question is from Cindy. She asked, will the air vest protect against injury from a horse stepping on the rider?
So that is a great question. And it's one of the things that we definitely go over when you're talking about what air vests can and cannot do. What air vests are fantastic for is what I call broadside impact. So if you're going to land on your back or on your side or on your front, and you're kind of getting flung like over a horse's neck or getting bucked off, an air vest is great. But what it's not great for is what I call pinpoint impact. And that would include getting stepped on or getting kicked or landing on a jump cup, for example. Because if you think about an air vest, it's like an air mattress. And if you step on an air mattress, what happens? The air just goes somewhere else. So if you have a 1,200-pound animal stepping on you, the air is just going to go somewhere else. So in a situation like that, a body protector would be better. So when I have a client that I'm working with, I always ask, what is their protection priority? I look back to the types of falls and injuries they've had in the past. Certainly what has happened in the past is not a predictor of the type of fall in the future. We can't predict our fall, unfortunately, but we can at least try to piece together what the most effective equipment would be for that individual rider. And in some cases, it might be a body protector. Some cases, it might be an air vest. Frankly, what I tell everybody is the safest thing is to wear both. Many, if not most of the eventers at this point, when they're going cross country, they are wearing both. The body protector is actually mandatory for them, and the air vest is optional. We're starting to see better adoption of dual protection in the hunter jumper world, which is fantastic to see. We still have a ways to go there. But definitely best is to wear both, but each has fantastic capabilities and each has limitations that everybody needs to be aware of as well.
Great. So it looks like there are some more helmet related questions coming in. A few. So I'm going to try to combine all to one. Nice question for you, I believe, Catherine. When riding, what helmet brands do you recommend? And what is your recommendation between Sam Shield and MIPS? And what is MIF? Not sure of the spelling, helmet technology.
Yep, so MIPS is MIPS. And if you actually Google it and just type in MIPS helmets, it comes up with a site with all of the different MIPS manufacturers. And you can then choose your discipline. If you're riding motorcycles, if you are an equestrian, if you're, bike racing, and it will show you a list of all of the manufacturers. So that would be my guidance, would be to go to that website, and we can certainly share that after the session with a follow-up. That's where I would recommend that you would look. And I think the big thing is you can choose from multiple different brands. I would just really encourage that it is a brand that has MIPS technology.
Excellent. I think it looks like we have one last question, unless another one comes in while I'm asking this question from Susan. She wrote, one last hunt question. Does Babington Mills sell feeds in Michigan?
There you go.
We don't have a distributor in Michigan, but we can certainly have it delivered out there. So the answer is yes. But I don't have a feed store out there selling it at the moment because of logistics.
But if somebody has an idea, maybe.
Right.
If you have a feed store that wants to carry it, they should call us.
For sure. To say that I was at the international ring a few weeks ago, and there was a Canadian rider who on the last fence, she went off and you heard the pop, and it deployed and it did its thing. And then I met with her about 2 days later, and her comment was that's the first fall she ever had where she had no pain afterwards. Yeah. So and we have another affirmation of that here.
That's right.
From Diana. Diana is saying, yes, I know, I had that experience too.
And I'm old and I feel everything.
Right. Well, she's not that old. But she says she feels everything. Okay, well,
We don't
understood.
bounce like we used to. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, do you want to close us out?
No, I just thank you for having us. I'm glad I could welcome everybody to my home, and I hope this was very informative. And I'm sure if you need to reach out to Catherine or Geoff with any other questions, you can contact them through their email. But it was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Miranda.